What's that? Something with well, just the letter says 9.5 feet, the other says 28 inches.
Yeah. What is it?
I'll look at the plan. Yeah. I'll look at the plan.
Okay, let's get going here. Thanks, Jennifer. I'll take a motion at this point to close the executive session and to reopen the public meeting. Is there a motion? Trustee Cassell, second Trustee Russillo. All in favor? We'll open the public hearing. Meeting will come to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and a prayer by Trustee Russillo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Last Saturday, a number of the Board of Trustees attended the Dobbs Ferry Fire Department's installation of officers dinner. The following day, 5 young people were killed in a fire in Queens. Today was the wake of firefighter Timothy William Tolley, who died last week fighting a fire and who left behind a 8-year-old daughter. I would just like to take this moment to acknowledge those tragic deaths and to acknowledge the commitment that all first responders, and especially the Dobbs Ferry firefighters, have on display for our behalf. So thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Kenny. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Village Hall. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for Tuesday, April 25, 2017. Just a couple of notes here before we get started. Deputy Mayor Vic Golio is excused tonight on a business trip. He's in San Diego.
Sounds nice.
Lucky guy. I think everything's pretty straightforward. I am going to take a motion here. We are going to add one more item to the agenda, which will be action item number 10, which will be to schedule a public hearing for May 9th at 7:30 p.m. To consider increasing the library board membership from its current number of members from 7 to 9. So is there a motion to add that action item to the agenda? Trustee Russillo, second. Trustee Corrales, discussion, all in favor? So that'll be added at the end, and we'll explain what that's about when we get there. We've got a couple of presentations that we're going to start off with tonight, which we'll get to here shortly. Well, I'll explain what we're doing when we get there. Following the second presentation, we'll go to courtesy of the floor. So if you've got anything at all that's on your mind, you'd like to address the board, anything that's on the agenda or not on the agenda, anything, any issues you've got, problems or good things you want to tell us, that would be the time to come if you're recognized. Please wait to be recognized and come to the mic there. State your name and your address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. We do appreciate that. And then we'll get to matters requiring action. So the first presentation tonight is a presentation by the Historical District Task Force. Sonia Terjanian is here. Nice to see you. Sonia, I'll let her introduce herself and what she's doing. I do want to add that when Sonia gets finished with the presentation, I'm happy to take some comments from any members of the community that want to comment on this initiative, what Sonia's talking about, if you want to give us your thoughts. So we'll take comments afterwards if anybody in the audience has anything to say about that. And I think we might take some action tonight as well on this matter. So we'll have a little bit follow-up after the presentation. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi. So as the mayor said, I'm Sonia Terjanian. I'm the chair of the Historic District Task Force. And I'm here tonight to talk about the work we've been doing to establish legislation that will enable the designation and regulation of historic landmarks and districts in Dobbs Ferry. So the first thing I just want to go over is broadly, why is it important to designate and preserve historic landmarks? And a really big reason, of course, is property values. Studies have shown that properties within local historic districts appreciate at rates greater than the local market overall, as well as faster than similar non-designated neighborhoods. Historic districts are also less vulnerable to market volatility from interest rate fluctuations and economic downturns. So that's an important benefit. Another great benefit is sustainability. When you tear down buildings and replace them with new buildings, you create a lot of waste, a lot of landfill, and you also don't get to realize the energy potential within that old building. So the Environmental Protection Agency says that building construction debris accounts for 1/3 of waste generated in the United States. Also, a building of typical size in the downtown of a New York village, if demolished, occupies approximately the same amount of space in a landfill as 1.3 million aluminum cans. So we can all recycle our aluminum cans all day long, but if we're tearing down buildings right and left and putting them in the landfill, we're not doing enough to protect the environment. Another way to think about this is in terms of embodied energy, which is the measure of how much energy was expended to construct a building and its parts. If a building is demolished, those parts are not retrofitted for greater energy efficiency, and all of the embodied energy is lost. So you're not taking full advantage of the existing structure when you just tear it down, whereas you could retrofit it to become more energy efficient, more modern, and that would actually capitalize on the embodied energy already in that structure. Another great reason to preserve historic buildings is heritage tourism. Studies have shown that those who visit historic sites and areas where a great deal of historic preservation activity has occurred generally spend 30% more than other tourists and stay nearly twice as long. I think Dobbs Ferry has huge potential in this area. And finally, a little bit less tangible, but just as important, are benefits to the community. By focusing on historically significant neighborhoods of Dobbs Ferry, we help our community feel more connected to the story of our village, and this makes people feel like they're part of something special, and it builds community pride, which encourages long-term engagement and investment in our village. So what's in our code currently? Currently, there is language in our code that allows for the designation and regulation of historic districts. I discovered this a couple of years ago when I decided that I wanted to try to designate my block of Belton Avenue as a historic district. But as I went about the process, I realized that the language in the code was very vague and it raised more questions for me than it answered. And I didn't think I was ready to go to my neighbors and say, we're going to do this without having those questions answered. So some of these questions are, how do we determine which properties have special historical or aesthetic interest or value? And how can we include property owners in that decision? What is binding historical review exactly? What if someone wants to demolish a historic landmark? How can we avoid demolition by neglect? In other words, letting a building get to a point where it has to be torn down because it's in such bad shape. And finally, what if a property owner can't afford to follow these rules and recommendations that are in place for historic landmarks and districts? So as I started asking these questions, I came to the Board of Trustees and said, what's the deal? And we kind of agreed that we needed to work on improving this part of our code. And so with the help of the mayor, I established a historic district task force, which is a broad group of people from the community, including real estate experts, architects, preservation people, as well as representatives from all the statutory boards and residents of neighborhoods that might consider becoming historic districts in the future. So we got together and we looked to a lot of groups and resources for information because when we first started out, we didn't really know what we were doing. So the first place we called was the New York State Historic Preservation Office. And they were great. They sent a representative down here to one of our early meetings to explain how this is done on a municipal level and what kind of legislation typically is put in place for historic preservation. We also turned to the Preservation League of New York State. That was very helpful. And then this document was extremely helpful, the Model Landmarks Preservation Local Law for New York State Municipalities. So this is a template that was created by New York State to allow local villages and towns to just insert language into their code that has already been vetted by the state and is already tested. It's been tested for years. It works great, and it allows for the creation of historic districts and shows you how to regulate them. So we took that as our basis, and we spent about a year adapting it to Dobbs Ferry, to our specific needs. We also looked at nearby towns and other towns from around the country to see how their legislation was written. Irvington, as you probably know, has recently established a huge historic district in their downtown. They've done a great job, and we've used them as a model throughout this process. Cold Spring is another town that Steve Tilley has worked extensively with to create design guidelines. We've asked them a lot of questions about how theirs works. We looked at Rhode Island's legislation, Montgomery County, Maryland, and we adapted the historic district application form that's used in San Jose, California. So the first question, how do we determine which properties have special historical or aesthetic interest or value, and how can we include property owners? Basically, anyone can apply to designate a historic landmark, a district, or a scenic landmark. The application form that we've designed includes a scoring system for determining the historic significance of a property based on factors such as age, the condition of original features, relevance to local history, and a lot of other factors. So the process works like this. To designate a single building or a landmark, you fill out the individual property form. Then you use the score sheet to determine if the building qualifies as a historic landmark. It's a non-binding guideline, but it's helpful to sort of help you sort out all the factors that you have to consider. To designate a historic district, you fill out those individual forms for each property, as well as the sort of umbrella historic district application. You use the score sheet on each building to determine if each one should be considered contributing or non-contributing. An example of a non-contributing property is like in Irvington downtown, they have a gas station. It's not necessarily an old building, but it happens to fall within the boundaries of the historic district, but it's not historic. So it's labeled as non-contributing, which means it's not subject to the same regulations as the contributing properties. And then 50% of the property owners within the proposed district must consent to the designation. So we have a signature form where you have to gather signatures and show that at least half of the neighborhood is on board with this. After receiving an application, the AHRB holds a public hearing. They make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, who ultimately decide whether or not to grant historic status. So once historic status is granted, it's subject to what's called binding historical review. So every time that you want to make a change to the exterior, you need a certificate of appropriateness. Ordinary maintenance and repair don't require a certificate of appropriateness as long as it doesn't involve a change in design, building materials, or outward appearance. The AHRB will issue the C of A if the proposed work will not have a substantial adverse effect on the aesthetic, historical, or architectural significance and value of the individual landmark, or if it's in a district, on the property itself, the district, or neighboring properties in such district. The legislation we're proposing defines principles for making these decisions, and it lists specific factors to consider, including extensive non-binding design guidelines. So we want to make it as clear as possible what the considerations are when you're looking at a project involving a historic building and deciding whether or not to approve the changes. Why do we need these guidelines? First of all, they help people learn about the architectural history of their homes. It helps people understand the architectural style that they're working with, and gives them a basis for making decisions about what materials to use and what designs they want to implement. Design guidelines also ensure consistent regulation, reducing subjective judgment calls, where people are just kind of looking at plans and saying, oh, that looks nice. We want to actually give people a firm basis for making these decisions. Historic buildings, it's important to note that they're not meant to be frozen in time. They should be updated and adapted to modern life. We're not trying to stop anyone from changing their home, expanding it, renovating it, what have you. Well-written guidelines help owners make those updates in a way that will not erode a building's historic character or the character of the district. So what if someone wants to demolish a historic landmark? The process for demolishing a historic landmark will be more rigorous than it is for non-designated structures. We're introducing a new process for these buildings. First thing, you would file an application for a historic building demolition permit with the building inspector, who would make a recommendation to the AHRB. The AHRB would consider the application in a public hearing, and then make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees would make the final decision. The AHRB can recommend a waiting period during which they consider the possibility of relocating the historic resource or modifying the historic resource for future uses in a way which preserves its architectural and historic integrity. There's a different, more expedited process for buildings that present an immediate threat to health or safety, or which are deemed to be a public nuisance. So how can we avoid demolition by neglect? This is where the affirmative maintenance and repair requirement comes in. We have a case on Belden Avenue of a house that's owned by the bank. It's in foreclosure. There's a big hole in the roof, and there's so much water coming in that it's causing a lot of structural damage, and may render this building just unusable. So it's a historic building, and it would be a real shame to see it taken down because of this neglect. It happens a lot in cases of absentee owners or situations like this. So this is kind of a worst case scenario clause. Historic properties cannot be allowed to fall into a serious state of disrepair. Types of prohibited disrepair are defined in the legislation, and generally they're issues that will compromise the life and character of the building. The building inspector and the HRB can require owners to make necessary repairs. If the repairs are not made, the Board of Trustees can have the repairs made at the expense of the village, with costs placed as a lien against the property. What if a property owner can't afford to follow the rules and recommendations? So we have something called a certificate of hardship that you can apply for in this situation. To apply for it, you need to show that the denial of a certificate of appropriateness will keep you from earning a reasonable return on your investment, or that it will deny you the beneficial use of your property. You'll have to demonstrate that the requested relief won't alter the essential character of the neighborhood and that the hardship is not self-created. So the process, you submit an application, the AHRB holds a public hearing on the hardship application. They will try to develop a plan with you for making the improvement in a way that provides a reasonable return while maintaining the historic character of the landmark and or the district. And then the AHRB will grant or deny the certificate of hardship. We consulted with the town of Cold Spring on this issue because they have the economic hardship clause in their legislation, and they said the key to this process is to make it as collaborative as possible at every step of the way, with the AHRB helping owners do the right thing within their means and understanding their restrictions. So what's next? Ideally, we would like to pass this legislation. It's already been through the planning board. It's back to you now. We can talk more about what those steps would be. And then we'd like to implement our pilot project, which is a small historic district involving 12 houses on Belden Avenue. And that will allow us to put this legislation to the test, see how it works. We can make adjustments as needed after we establish that historic district, and then proceed with designating additional landmarks and districts in Dobbs Ferry. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sonia. That was a really good presentation.
you.
Thank you very much. Well, let me start, just ask if any of the, you may want to stay up there, just if any of the trustees have any questions or comments
Yeah,
on this at all?
I have a question. First, a comment. Sonia, fabulous work. You and your committee, the amount of work that must have gone into this is mind-boggling, so thank you very much. My question is, when you get 50% in your neighborhood and you need 50% consent, is that 50% of every building in that neighborhood, or is it 50% of the contributing buildings?
It would be, well, I think 50% of every building.
Okay.
That's how I think Irvington set it up. So, yeah, but that's a good question.
I also want to commend you, Sonia, having worked with you on the task force the past, I guess it's been a couple of years. I can personally attest to how much work you've put into it. It was an honor to work on this with you and with all the other members of the task force. So I really commend the whole task force on a job well done. This is far more complicated than you make it seem, and I think your presentation really brought out all of the essential points that people need to know. I think initial knee-jerk reaction can sometimes be, oh, historic, designation means you can't do anything, and then it's going to be more expensive. But obviously, the way this legislation is set up, it does give options for people to still modify their home, still update it, and do it within their means. So I think that's all positive. And I think one of the things that I hope we see is that more and more people take an interest in historic properties in the village, because there are so many that maybe we don't even all notice, that we pass by every day, that could really be brought out and brought to light in this process. So I commend you for that. Thank you.
One thing that I think would be very helpful, and as all of us are thinking about it and also answering questions from residents, is maybe to have some examples of the types of renovations that we often see in the village. A classic renovation on an older home might be pushing out the back of the house to build a master bedroom suite and a family room that attaches to what was once a small kitchen, and how those types of what I would call everyday renovations would operate in this kind of a framework. How much more difficult, if at all, would it be for somebody to undertake that kind of renovation?
Well, a couple of years ago, they put the H into the AHRB in the hope that the AHRB would take historical context into consideration when approving projects, and that is part of their powers and their duties right now. So this is not going to add, this will add more design guidelines to help them make those judgment calls, but it's still pretty much in line with what they're already doing. I would say the big areas where this is different are in the area of demolition and demolition by neglect. But yeah, I agree that it's probably helpful to look at examples of good renovations. And Steve Tilley is actually going to be doing our design guidelines for us, and those will involve photographs and drawings and examples of how things are done right.
Some of the architects who are active in the village may have some ideas about, okay, this is the kind of thing that is done frequently in the village, and working up some examples, I think, would help everybody understand better how any constraints might work. With respect to people being able to do what they want to do with their homes.
Yeah, those design guidelines are going to be really important to look at carefully and to let people see, because they'll give, for example, things that happen to the front of the house are more important than things that happen to the back of the house, things like that, things that can be seen from the street. The guidelines will address those issues. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Can I just ask, how did Cold Spring or Irvington handle more of the hardship? Is there someone assigned to how aggressive would they be going up to someone's house and say, you know what, that porch has to be replaced because it's sagging, or the materials that you're using are not right, or you really have to do your roof? How aggressive, and was there a procedure for people who just don't have the money?
Yeah, so it's not going to be a matter of walking around the village and handing out tickets for things. It's more when you decide that you want to replace your roof and you live in a historic landmark, you have to ask for a certificate of appropriateness. And at that point, the HRB will decide if your plan for that roof is appropriate or not. And if they deny the certificate, because say you want to put a standing seam roof on a Victorian house, for example, you can then apply for relief in the form of a certificate of economic hardship. So, I think we've seen so far that the AHRB works very well with residents to help them achieve their goals within their means. It's in a lot of cases, it's a matter of educating people about what's appropriate for the style of their house, because people just don't necessarily know.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And I think from what I can tell, I know we haven't done the design guidelines yet, but from the discussions at the task force, I think there's a desire to create guidelines that will give people different options that will still be in keeping with the historic aesthetic look, but may not always be exactly the original material, such as, a solid mahogany front door, which could be cost prohibitive for most people. So I think there will be flexibility built into those guidelines that give options that would still maintain, a look that's appropriate.
Exactly.
Is the design guidelines going to be part of the legislation we're being asked to pass?
They will be added to, I'm not sure if they're gonna be finished by the time the legislation comes before you. It's an ongoing project to get them finished. Irvington passed their legislation without the guidelines in place, and so they're gonna be, they did it at a later date. So we might have to work out something like that. But, yeah, it's a lot of work, and Steve's doing it on a volunteer basis.
Oh, no, I was just asking.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Well done, Sonia. There's
Yeah,
a
thank
really
you.
nice presentation and good work of your committee and all those involved. Would anybody from the group like to make any comments about this proposal?
My name is Ann Schneider, and I live on Belden Avenue, and I lived there for almost 60 years, and I'm not in the historic district. I'm down on the corner of Pietro and Belden. And I have seen these gems, because that's the way I walk up to Broadway into town. And I hope you all have taken a serious good look at all of them. One of them is from the 1850s, and it was owned originally by Laura Belden. And so there's so much history there in the block, and I would really think we should go out of our way to make sure that these houses are preserved in such a beautiful way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Anybody else?
My name is Peggy Markey. I live also on Belden Avenue, and my house will be in the historic district. I am so pleased. I love my house, I love all the houses around me, and as my neighbor said, they are true treasures. And I thank Sonia and her committee so much for this. I couldn't be more happy, and I sure hope you pass this.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you.
Steve Tilley, 22 Elm Street. I don't normally use the word awesome, but that applies to Sonia and the work she's done in spearheading this. So, and I can say that, I've worked in a lot of these communities, and the world hasn't come to an end. There haven't been revolutions. In general, what's happened is that people have stayed there and committed to these neighborhoods, and property values have tended to stabilize, and it's really been a positive thing. I think that I'm just going to list other municipalities that have historic districts, have this kind of legislation that I'm familiar with. Cold Spring, Red Hook, New York, up in Dutchess County, Peekskill, Ossining, Terrytown, Usonia, Irvington, New Rochelle, Rye, Bronxville, Yonkers has multiple districts, Tuxedo Park, where we've worked, and as Sonia said, the restrictions are really trying to promote kind of awareness on people's part about what the kind of what's in front of them. When we did a presentation a few years ago to a kind of a class at the high school, kids just kind of suddenly realized, looking around, you see that actually there's they're architectural gems right around you. You walk by them every day and you don't realize it, and there's a whole set of history. So it's part of the retaining that. It is about telling the stories and the memories and kind of rekindling that connection to the history of the place. And what happens in the guidelines, we'll talk about things like the backyard is a little bit like Las Vegas. You know, what happens in the back, stays in the back. Things can change because things come and go in the back of historic buildings, so lean-tos and so on and so forth. There's a whole history of that. So it really is, it's not falling off a cliff. It's just, initially the legislation is just going to make this possible. Then there are a whole set of tests for each neighborhood that come into place. So it's, this is a gradual process, and there has a lot of feedback loops.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Anybody else care to make any comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Alex Gersh, probably the newest residents on Belden Avenue 42. So the reason we moved there is specifically because of that house and that street we love so much, already love so much. And Sonia and our neighbors, she was very kind to invite us and talk about this in a very much different environment, less public and more private. It was wonderful. And I think on behalf of myself and my wife, it's a great idea. I think we're really for it, and we'd be hate to see that red building go, the one you mentioned. I do want to kind of bring a little bit more practicality, a little bit of caution, some of the things that you mentioned in terms of, in terms of the proverbial mahogany door, or we have, let's say, special shingles in our house, front of our house, and it might not be appropriate to replace them with the same ones. Clearly, as a figurative example. So I think it's important to look just to make sure that we do follow the guidelines, some things that Sonia proposed, let's say having a porch up front, keeping, I think that's wonderful. But at the same time, it'd be important to have practicality. As I mentioned in the meeting earlier, we had a flooding already in the first 2 months of our house because of the old Yankee gutters. And I said earlier, I didn't even know what Yankee gutters was until we moved in. Now I do, but it would have been extremely impractical to replace them with the same ones. It would be extremely impractical and expensive. So we had to put regular ones, and they're not visible in terms of eyesore, but the practicalities of this legislation are extremely important. Well, let me rephrase it. The details of this legislation is very important because whether it's maintenance or whether it's major construction. So I think if it's possible for you and everybody else to consider the very specific details, as opposed to not just feeling good historical district that will bring certain things to the village. So I just want to see that.
Thank you, Alex. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for those comments, and again, thanks, Sonia. I think what I wanted to suggest tonight was, as Alex said, a lot of private work has been done, right? But it actually hasn't been so private. It started that way. There's been public workshops. There's been a lot of work that has been out, and talking with Sonia about this and really supporting this, we felt it was important to have a presentation that could really show where you are now. And this was really, really well done. And I think what we want to consider now is moving from the sort of private work that's being done, now we want to move this into the public, right? And because that's what we need to do next is talk about this publicly and have public hearings if we're going to consider taking what is legislative for making an amendment to legislation that would amend the village code. So pretty big stuff. But I think we're very excited about this. So I think in terms of next steps, I wanted to suggest that we consider setting a public hearing in May. And we've looked at the calendar. We are considering a number of very important legislative actions related to the code. And this is one of them. And we're sort of trying to manage all this together in the process because it's really important. And it's important that we do it right. But I think the consideration here would be to set a public hearing in May at our second meeting, which would be the 23rd. And specifically to have this on the agenda as a public hearing to present the legislation. Now, it may be that night we're not quite ready to do the all-in version, the certified Do I have that right? The certified authority or that and the consent type of thing. But I think we can talk about that along the way, but at least to get to the point where we have the legislation in the code. And as your slide says here, we pass legislation, we consider passing legislation, we adjust as needed, we look at focusing on the Belden neighborhood, because you really all are buying into this, and it is a wonderful neighborhood, and it's obviously, as you all know, already cited in the village master plan and to consider this. So it's the obvious place to start, and then we proceed with, after that, not to jump too far ahead, but possibly designating other areas. So that's what we were thinking tonight. So unless you all have a problem with that scheduling, Darius, by the way, so many of you have been involved with this and doing great work. I just want to give a little shout out to Darius, who's been really working closely with Sonia on the legal aspects. There's a lot of legality to this, and he's going to be there up until the end to make sure that this is done right, and totally supporting too. So, right, you are.
Yeah.
So do you see any issues here in that? And
No,
any
we
other
can
members
get
of
to
the
the
board?
legislation.
Are we pushing it too hard here or rushing too hard?
We can do that.
My only question was, if Sonia's available then as well to present, okay? Because I think it would be useful for those who couldn't see tonight's, maybe if she's available to answer
Questions?
more questions as well.
Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of throwing
Yeah.
out before I take a motion here, making sure you're available, and a lot of your neighbors and team are here, and maybe to go through some of these, obviously, these slides. Again, what I would imagine, we're gonna have much more detailed language to go through as well. By doing this tonight, we're noticing this in advance, and we can get information out and post information for people to look ahead of time too. So we can't be, blamed for not having gotten this out there and prepared everybody for it, so. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. Well, great. So let's see if we can move this forward then. And that is, I'll take a motion then to consider an amendment to set a public, drop back. Let me take a motion or consider a motion to schedule a public hearing for May 23rd, 2017 at 7 o'clock? 7:30. When do we usually get started? 7:30? 7:30 PM. I think we're doing this long enough, I know, but 7:30 PM here at Village Hall to consider an amendment to the Village Code adding historical district legislation. Is there a motion? Trustee Corrales, second. Trustee Russillo, discussion, all in favor? And that passes with 6 ayes and 1 absent. So we'll be ready to go back at it on the 23rd. We'll do some preparation work beforehand, be in touch. And thank you all very much for your comments. We look forward to seeing you on the 23rd and moving this ahead. Thanks, Sonia. Okay, moving on. We'll move on to our second presentation here, which is going to be given by the Conservation Advisory Board. Will that be Brad?
Is it Brad and Nancy? Is Nancy here?
Is Nancy and Brad? Okay.
So hello, my name is Brad Scott. I'm with the Conservation Advisory Board. I will not be using these slides. But, this is really just an update. We have a couple things we want to talk to you about today. The first being an initiative that we started about 2 months ago to really look at Waterfront Park and a lot of the public parks that we have available to us inside of Dobbs Ferry. These are amazing amenities that we have, and everybody has done a phenomenal job both in redeveloping them and maintaining them. But we wanted to make sure that we brought as much to bear on preserving them as possible. In doing that, what we did was we reached out to the Central Park Conservancy. They have an institute that they have recently formed in the last 2 years, which is the Central Park Conservancy Institute for Urban Parks. It's a very long name. And their sole mission is to help municipalities with the maintenance of the parks that all of the residents enjoy. The benefit of this is that it allows us to be able to train our municipal employees on things such as turf maintenance, tree care, and all the things that are really become kind of, I wouldn't say problems, but become challenges with highly trafficked parks. Everything that we enjoy. So it's always this kind of this odd thing that happens, right? We build a beautiful park, people are very happy about it, they come and visit it, and guess what they do? They walk on the lawn. Or they decide that they're going to do chin-ups on a tree. or they decided they're going to help out in some way, shape, or form, and actually end up doing damage inadvertently. So what they've really done is they've developed a program to help train us on how to maintain these types of initiatives. The benefit of this as well is that the Central Park Conservancy's history was actually in public-private partnership. The Conservancy itself was actually a nonprofit started to help restore Central Park in the 70s and 80s. So they have a tremendous ability to help guide us in really leveraging our friends community, the waterfront park, as well as any of the volunteers. And really this becomes important because what we don't want to do is step on each other's toes. So what they've agreed to do is come and start their process of helping us to do an assessment, develop a plan that really starts to leverage all the resources that we have available to us to maintain the parks. So, opportunistically, we also asked them, would it be possible to look at High Street? And would it be possible to also include Memorial Park? They're right next door. So with a quick Google Maps survey, they said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we're actually scheduling the very first visit. It's going to be a walkthrough in mid-May. So we're batting around the dates, and that's going to be attended by the city, by the CAB, and by the Friends of Waterfront Park. That's all I got.
That's excellent.
That's,
Good job.
Outstanding, and you know, those three properties are obviously connected, right? And they all kind of go with each other, and you know, we know the High Street issues and some of the ideas that are being floated around there that, you know, this will probably help in that discussion, right?
That's correct.
So I think that's great. I would suggest, and you know, Donna can talk because she's the liaison, but you know, I don't know whether you would want to have the Parks and Rec people with you. I think you probably want to consider that.
Oh, Gary and Betsy
And
come in.
Gary
Yeah.
and Betsy,
Yeah,
and
Charlie.
have everybody there, so
Yeah.
you're all together. But Brad, that sounds like a great idea, and I'll let Donna comment more because I know she's been working closely with you guys on that too.
Yeah, no, this is a terrific thing that Brad brought to the committee, and we have a terrific committee. Everybody's been working very hard, and you know, some things work, some things don't. But this is something that is really terrific. It doesn't cost us anything. That was the other thing; they do it for free, the Conservancy. So that's a great thing. And if we can get High Street in there too, because that's pretty problematic, and if we can get some professional advice on that, that's terrific. Yeah.
Mayor, may I add something?
Can I add one more?
Sure.
The cemetery.
I was thinking during.
Maybe that's the second visit.
That's the
Okay.
second visit.
Somebody's gonna have to buy him lunch at least.
Yeah, we just upped it there.
Maybe
Okay,
we can
second
get a
visit.
restaurateur to give it to us.
Brett,
What I'm noticing with this work, there's always one more thing to be added.
Brad, I would just say, you know, I commend you and the CAB for being creative, looking outside the village for, you know, what sound like tremendous resources to help us manage our resources here in the village parks better. So, thank you.
Well, thanks for the appointment, and thank you. We have one more presentation and update, and we're going to try to make this a regular event. So,
I just have one other question, Brad, and I think the village administrator had a comment as well. My question was, do you have any examples of the kind of assistance that they provide once they've done the walkthrough? Just so I can get a better sense of maybe what they could help us with. Do they help us find grants? Do they? No. Okay. There's one clear answer.
They might. So the Central Park, the Institute for Urban Parks was actually formed by a generous donation of one of the people who happen to be on their board. Their goal is to share the knowledge that they've acquired in the last 30 years of maintaining Central Park with other parks. And this can be at a very tactical level, and it can be at a policy level. So at a tactical level, they've developed a lot of ways to maintain turf, trees, wildlife, crowd control, how to manage large events, things like that. So, you know, the types of issues that we deal with and see on a day-to-day basis. From a policy perspective, they've developed a tremendous amount of knowledge in how to work with cities, how to work with volunteer groups, how to work with potentially funding, but it's not what they provide.
Okay.
So what they're going to be providing us after the walkthrough is really assistance on this. They'll provide tactical training on like the turf management, the tree maintenance, those types of things, to the DPW. But then they'll also be providing us with a master maintenance, I say maintenance plan, on how to kind of make sure that we are maintaining the park correctly against like a schedule that then allows people to understand what the volunteers do versus what the DPW do. So they're also going to help us with kind of drafting that policy and how those two work, how those groups work together.
Oh, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Great.
But you know what, I'll try to throw in a grant. We'll see.
Thank you.
I just have, I'm so appreciative of this, and I look forward to working with all of you. I mean, what they're providing for us is invaluable. And never mind the grant on the first initial, I'll ask you for that later, but initially, what they're giving us is worth a fortune, actually.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we really need to learn is the cooperation amongst the different groups and how to manage the volunteers.
Yeah.
And on the tactical, the training that they're going to give us is also invaluable, and we all look forward to it. We've already had initial meeting, and set up some dates, and all of us said, whatever dates you want, you have.
Very smart.
Yeah. So I just want to share my appreciation for this. Thank you.
Thanks. If you squeeze the top of the thing, you can lower it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jean Michelson, and I'm a member of the CSD also. And I'm just here to invite everyone, urge everyone, and to Hudson, River Keepers Hudson River Suite, which is on May 6th on the Waterfront Park. CAB is organizing it this year, and it's an annual cleanup that the River Keeper has all along the Hudson Valley and into New York City to bring the communities together along the Hudson and to protect the Hudson River. So I have this poster for everyone to look at, and I hope you join us on May 6th.
Jean, can you tell everybody how to sign up for it?
Oh, yes. They encourage you to sign up on their website, which is riverkeeper.org/sweep. And they have a lot of information about the sweep and the history of it. And also on the day of the event, you can sign up. And it's at 10 o'clock. And meeting by the flagpole.
Gene, that's great, thank you very much. And if you have that, like, or if somebody has that in a file format, if you could send it to Liz Draper or the village clerk, who could get it to me, we'll put that in the newsletter before the date to get some more. I know you've got that out there anyway, but happy to help with that.
Okay,
if that
thank
helps. Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation. We had two really good presentations today. Thanks very much. Okay, courtesy of the floor. Anybody care to address the board? Patty? Yeah.
Patty Steinschneider, 329 Broadway. Here with Donna and Rob Barron, the three of us on the New York Bridge Committee. We want to give you a really quick report, which is just to update the village where we're at with this. We have gotten the funding for the $150,000 for the 5 villages. We've proceeded to retain Nelson Nygaard, which is an amazingly good firm to be doing this. And we had our kind of organizational meeting last week, and in fact, they asked that we come back to the individual villages and let you know this is what we're doing, and that you should be looking out in about a month and a half for our first open meetings that we're going to be coming to the villages and asking people their ideas and interests in different things. This has to do with the Broadway corridor, and what we're looking to really do is to, we've got this bridge. It's going to be bringing people with bicycles and walking, and be nice that when they get on the side that there's some place for them to go that's safe and interesting and fun. And I think we've got great opportunities here in Dobbs Ferry to get people to come down, take advantage of our downtown and our waterfront and everything else.
That's great.
Great, thank you for that, Patty. Thanks for that update. Anybody else care to address the board at all? Yes, ma'am, you want to come up?
Well, I just really want to know if you meant to, you seem to say that if we have comments or questions about any of the matters requiring action, we might should present those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Judith Spikes. I live at 5 Grace Terrace. My comment is about number 3. Yeah, the upline at the iPick Golden Class Entertainment movie theater, I believe.
Yes, ma'am, what's your comment?
Well, my comment is, I don't have, at this moment at least, I don't have any particular opinion one way or the other about the uplighting that iPick Golden Class Entertainment would like to use on the front of the theater that they say they're planning to build there. I'm not sure if it's built there or just become a tenant there. I don't have any particular opinion one way or the other on that particular thing, but I'm very concerned about changing code to benefit a would-be tenant, which might then therefore opens up to requests for uplighting in lots of other places in the village, which in my opinion would be a disaster. The code does not allow it anywhere now. I think that's adopted for a very good reason, and I hope that this would be looked at very, very carefully before a waiver was considered for that location.
Thanks, Judith, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that when we get there. Thanks for your comment and your concerns on that.
Good evening, David Kingsburg, 138 Ogden Avenue. And the reason I'm here is for that very issue. My house looks out over the theater, and I was also on the board when we adopted the code. And I remember spending a lot of time talking about the lighting issues, and I just think that I looked at the documents that presents, and so far as I can see, there's been, I don't understand what the justification is for their request for this waiver. And, the code, section 350, talks about the purpose of the section on signs is to promote, protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And one of those is to reduce visual pollution. And then a particular section of the uplighting, well, it's quoted in the memo that Mr. Manley provided, but the provision for waiver, or at least the one that I could find in the code, talks about that the board can waive certain provisions of the zoning code, as I'm sure you're well aware, as you've been through a lot of hearings on that issue in the last year or two. But again, it has to be consistent with the purpose of promoting health, safety, and general welfare and community and the purposes of the chapter. I don't understand why they need to get a waiver for the uplighting. From what I can tell from the drawings that were presented to you, these lights are in front of the theater, so it's not off the road. I don't understand what the purpose of why they need to draw the extra attention at that point. So I would just urge the board to deny the waiver. I don't think there's any justification for it. And certainly, we in the neighborhood have been subjected to 2 years of noise, construction, dust, everything. And then after it's all done and said, we were told this project would not need any zoning waivers or anything. For them to come in and ask for a waiver at the last minute, now it's a fait accompli. They built the building, and I just think there's no justification. And I certainly urge the board to deny the waiver. And I don't know whether or not, you're going to entertain comments when it comes up on the board or not on the agenda. I just wanted to at least make sure my comments were heard at this point. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Anybody else want to comment on the on item number 3? We'll have some discussion. The board certainly will at that. Thanks for your comments and your concerns. Anybody else care to address the board? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to matters requiring action. Action item number 1 is to consider a resolution to adopt the final 2017-18 fiscal year budget. By law, the village needs to adopt the budget by May, and typically the last meeting that we have in April is when we do that. I just want to make a couple of comments here, and I'll certainly ask any board members if they want to comment before we consider action. But we have covered the budget pretty extensively over the last couple of weeks for sure. We did have a public hearing on the budget last week when we met, Prior to that, about a week or two before that, there was a public workshop that was scheduled that the village traditionally does that allows the public to observe essentially a meeting which involves the trustees and the department heads giving their budgets and going through sort of a bigger picture, but looking at certain priorities too. But I just want to stress a couple of things about what we're considering tonight and talk a little bit about the budget specifically. Some points here to be made. We're going to be considering tonight in this budget a 1.95% tax rate increase. That increase will again mean if we adopt this budget tonight that the village will be coming under the New York State tax cap, which the village has done every year since the tax cap new law went into effect in 2012, 2013. So that's quite a bit of accomplishment. There aren't too many municipalities in the state of New York that can claim that. We will again be one of the lowest tax rate increases in the town of Greenberg, and it will be essentially the eighth consecutive year that the village has had very, very extremely low or flat tax rates. So, there's really some good statistics here in terms of where we're going to probably end up here again this year. This budget that we're going to consider addresses very conservatively, I believe, the short-term operational needs of the budget. Any budget needs to do that. That includes successfully negotiating a new 3-year term with the PBA, which we just recently did, and we're very, very confident that we'll be able to do the same thing with the Teamsters as well. Looking out 3 years, of course, anytime you do agree to new terms with your union contracts and you put some tenor on it, you're going to incur some expense when you do that, but you're doing that to make sure that you're budgeting properly for the year. So it's accomplishing that. It's maintaining a very healthy fund balance of 14% of the operating budget. So we have a fund balance policy that requires the village to maintain the fund balance between 12 and 15%. We're going to end up a little bit on the higher end of that, but that's a good thing because that essentially means that the village is very well prepared for those unknown surprises that come at you every year. And trust me, running a village, as Charlene can tell you and Gary can tell you, there's going to be a lot of unknown surprises this year. But the village is very, very well cushioned to handle that. But this budget also addresses the critical long-term capital needs of the village. And I think we've been discussing that. So we're addressing the short-term operational, but we're also coming up with a rate that is realistic to address action that we're going to be considering that will address very critical and very expensive long-term needs of the village, including the renovation of the Embassy Community Center, a significant upgrade of the pools that will be conducted later this year, fire department addressing fire department apparatus and the infrastructure to support that, i.e. large trucks that need to be replaced and are very, very expensive and other village assets. So that's another thing that this village budget addresses. And the village administrator and treasurer Jeff Chuda did a very good job of that last week in their presentation, which was made available to the public. The village has stayed absolutely true to the process and financial planning and budget process that was outlined 7 years ago. This is an all year round endeavor. This is not just something that's done in the last month of the fiscal year. This is done every year. It involves the department heads, it involves all the staff, it involves the board members. It utilizes an ad hoc citizens budget committee that has been very, very active. And we want to thank them for their work, and we've done a really good job communicating all along the way. And those are all things that have worked to the benefit of this whole process and keeps us all on our toes. We take input, we make tough decisions, and we get input from a lot of different places, including the public. So I do believe that we're delivering a very, very strong budget this year again that will deliver essential services at an extremely competitive rate to our residents, that supports a high quality of life in this town for all residents, young and old, and it makes Knott's Ferry a more sustainable place for the long term. And we want to thank the village budget officer, Charlene Delicato, for all the work that she's done. We want to really thank Jeff Chuda, our village treasurer, who does an amazing job. We want to thank all the department heads and all the staff who have contributed. I want to thank Bob McLaughlin and all the members of the budget committee. I want to thank the board members who have all been involved and the public who has positively put input and in some cases poke holes in what we do, and that's good too. So that's kind of where we are. Any other comments from the members here in terms of what we're considering tonight on the budget, or any concerns we have, or anybody disagree with that, or?
No,
Okay,
really agree.
great.
Very,
Awesome.
very, very good job.
Just, I guess I would make one comment. I would call people's attention to the budgets, which have all been, it's been filed publicly. There's a presentation from last board meeting for anyone who wants more detail, or they could reach out to members of the board or the village staff if they have further questions about the budget. And I think it's important that we once again thank all the people who volunteer their time and effort for the village. All of that helps the village stay within a budget that all of us can afford.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, so with that as sort of background, I'll take a motion to consider a resolution which will be adopting the budget. Let me just make sure I have this all right here. Okay, so I'll take a motion to consider the resolution which will adopt the fiscal 2017-2018, right, fiscal budget as presented and outlined, as recommended by the village budget officer and the village treasurer, and has been presented to the public. I'll note that this will be at a tax rate of $6.9546 per thousand. And if you want to see the resolution, these things, of course, are always posted. So it's been in our packet. So I'll take a motion to consider the resolution to pass the budget. Is there a motion? Trustee Cassell, second trustee Taylor. Discussion? All in favor? And that passes with 6 ayes. Good job, everybody.
Thank you.
South Ferry's in good shape because of all your efforts. Action item number 2 is to consider a motion to appoint Mr. John Barton as a member of the Conservation Advisory Board for a term of 3 years as recommended by the nominating committee. Is there a motion? Trustee Cassell, second. Trustee Corrales, discussion. All in favor? That passes with 6 ayes, 1 absent. Thanks, John, for volunteering your time. We really appreciate it. Action item number 3 is to consider a motion to approve a request from IPIC Gold Class Entertainment for a waiver of Village Code 300, Section 300-50 signs, B, general standards, 5 and B, exterior lights, uplighting. Well, I think we want to give a little bit of background. Darius, I might, let me look to you to give just a little bit of background to everybody for the benefit of those who are concerned about that, the general public, and the board that's considering this, this request.
Sure, I think Saber and IPIC were here last week actually it was, to consider on their facade uplighting to their IPIC name and I think some of the other smaller locations. I think the board had a lot of questions, some of these photometrics and the like were very difficult to understand. Our code does not allow uplighting, however there is a waiver provision under 352E of the code where you could consider waiving that provision. We asked, I think at the last meeting, if we could come down and take a look at the uplighting yesterday, last night, so we could review it and see what it looked like. We would make a determination. That happened last night. I think some of the trustees were there. I think 5 of you were there. Fortunately, the lightings didn't 100% work. I think half of them were on, or maybe a third of them were on. I forget a third of them were on. So you did get some look at it, but I think you would need to consider the waiver under our code provisions. You can grant it or deny it, or they can go another way or not have the uplighting. I think it's something you can discuss. Ask the applicants some more questions if you have any, and then you can either move it forward or not.
Okay, thanks, Darius. Well, I know representatives of IPIC team are here tonight again. Do you guys want to come and sort of represent this to us?
Yeah, I think it's, hi, this is Sandy Karp. I'm with IPIC. I'm the Senior Director of Conception and Design. So last night, unfortunately, we had programming issues and we couldn't get all the lighting up. So it's difficult to make that assessment. But from the lights that we did have up, I think the terminology of uplighting is what's getting everybody off. We have an RGB light, and it creates aglow. We're gonna talk about noise pollution. The lights that we have up are not causing noise pollution. The building across, every other light in Dobbs Ferry has a lot more noise pollution than what we're putting up. Excuse me?
Light pollution.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I say noise?
Yeah.
So it's been very
Long
long,
day.
very long days and nights right now trying to get this done. So what I would like is, I would really like for you guys to see all of it up, and really, and I'll do whatever you guys want at that point. We want to be good neighbors, like you said. But I would really ask that you guys give us a chance to get the lighting up, take a look at it, and we table this for a couple weeks until your next meeting. Maybe we can do the same thing that we attempted to do yesterday. My apologies if they weren't up. We really tried to make it happen. We had a programming issue.
Obviously, our biggest concern, along with the waiver issue, is light pollution, dark sky, and unfortunately, it looks like it probably won't be seen, but we need to see it before we can even consider a waiver.
And I agree 100%, and again, my apologies that it wasn't ready for you guys yesterday. But I'm 100% confident that when it is up and running, 100% up, that you guys will see, and when we can put, your visual eye, you'll see that we don't have any light pollution, that this is a glow to the building, and it's actually a better lighting system than the downlights and the fluorescent lights and the LED lights. And I have my lighting designer putting all those facts together for you guys as well. This is a great lighting system. It's energy efficient. There's a lot of things it does, environmentally. And visually what it does is it provides just a glow to our building, not to anything else. It's not in-your-face light, but I would like to prove that to you. And, I'm asking that you guys give me a couple weeks to get it, for the next meeting. Let me get it up and running, and then we'll table it for the next meeting if that's possible.
How quickly do you think you could get it up and running? Because I think one of the things that would be useful would be not just for us to see it, but maybe for a day or two for it to be on so that community members can take a look at it and they can really get a sense of what it is.
We had to overnight a couple of different pieces of equipment, some drivers and some whatnot. So we got one of the pieces today. The other piece should arrive tomorrow. We expect to have everything 100% up by maybe Thursday.
Okay.
Of this week. So it's not like something's going to drag out. I think by Thursday we'll have everything up and running.
Yeah.
You'll have it up and running by the opening, by the 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay, I think the 3rd is Wednesday, so maybe, so I think it would be good if maybe we could tell people when they would be operational, and I don't know, I would ask my fellow board members what they think of this, of course, but maybe have it up for 1 or 2 nights, and we could tell everyone in the public when it's gonna be on, and those that are interested in this issue can come see it, and we could go back and visit ourselves on our own time and really see what the impact is. And I would note from what we saw, while it was only partially there, because it's elevated in a certain way and then there's a frame along the top of the roof, it seems to contain it within that box, but we don't know that till we see it all on, of course, but I just, those were my preliminary observations. And also, I'd be just looking to see whether you really can see it from the neighborhood side of Dobbs Ferry.
Sure.
And then, I think the nearest apartment facing it is quite a distance, but it would just be interesting to see it from different angles, so.
But and again, that light is not projecting to you, it's just a hue on the building, so it's not going to really do anything to the apartments in front of them. The street lights cause more lighting to them than my building, so.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm asking for. Let me get it up and running, and I'll invite everybody to the city, or anybody who wants to come and look at it. I'm 100% confident you guys will agree that the lighting system that we use is the right lighting system, and it's not causing any light pollution, and it agrees with Dobbs Ferry, and it it's so elegantly designed for our building. And, you know, we bring a lot to the community as well. You know, we fill 250 employment opportunities for the city. You know, we're bringing a lot of good stuff to the city.
To the village.
To our village.
Sorry.
It's noise,
Sorry.
like.
Yeah, it's tired. I'm tired, finishing a job.
Yeah, I mean, I had reservations, obviously, that I discussed with you last night too, about the waiver and the standard, and similar to what Mr. Kingsford had mentioned earlier, but I think our consensus had been, since we weren't able to see it, to what you suggested makes sense, is to put it up, and I like the idea of having it up for a couple of days in a row so that different people in the community can come see it, not just the trustees, because it does affect everybody at Dobbs Ferry. So I think part of our inclination was, since you're having your grand opening on the 3rd, is maybe you know, allow you to have the lights on the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. And then maybe, I don't think we discussed this, but maybe then we could put it on the agenda for the May 9th meeting that we have. And then we can make a decision about the request, once we've had the opportunity to see it.
That would be great. Now, I just want to make a disclaimer. So our gala is obviously a big event, big night, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to have, you know, a lot of things going on, tents and stuff. That wouldn't be the night to judge the lighting. You know, you can judge the background lighting for that, but we do put, and this was approved by HRB, so we do have, for the gala that night, we do have uplighting that we do for the gala, for the party. It's on our property.
I'm talking about May 3rd.
May 3rd. What did I say?
No, I just said the gala. I just want to confirm that
I don't trust myself now.
I just want to confirm that that's May 3rd, so. I mean,
Right, yeah.
So maybe that's not the night for us
No,
to go
it's
by.
not.
No,
But-
that's, you know, that's the big, you know, it's our gala, you know, hey, we're opening, you know, we're celebrating, we do red carpet, you know, it's a lot of fun, we make it as fancy as we can, and, that's one night, you know, and then the next night it's back to.
Well, you said it's gonna be ready Thursday, you think, this week?
Yeah, I believe that by Thursday, if we get the parts tomorrow, I believe that between the electrician and my programmer, we're gonna be able to get everything resolved.
Okay, well, yeah, that sounds like the night of the gala and those days, there's gonna be a lot of activity, and that's not those aren't the nights to do it.
Well, that's just one night,
I
but
think,
that's
I
just
still
the
stand
3rd.
by my
3rd,
suggestion
4th,
that we
yeah.
let you have it on for the gala, and then the 4th and 5th, you know, members of the community and the trustees can come and look at it and see what it is and how it impacts the neighboring
Right,
residents.
but how about before and after? I mean, you
That's
wanna-
a long
You can go
time.
before, but I'm not
Well-
gonna be able to go before.
No, well, I know, but
I wouldn't want it on the whole week without us
No,
playing a
exactly,
role. So I think
exactly.
2 or 3 days, if you want to do a day before or whatever, but I wouldn't have it on Thursday until the following week, so.
No.
Okay, okay.
so with
I
those,
need
with
to
those,
put it on to test it, and I need to put it on to make sure it's working. and-
Oh, sure,
Right.
yeah, we
Right.
understand you need to
Right.
test it, that,
And that's
Right.
Well, how about
not,
if we
that's
get out
not
there
a
this
day of just
Yeah.
putting it on, you know, we need to make sure the programming
We
is
get out there
right.
this week.
So what are you saying for the testing part then? Like, what do you, what's your suggestion, your
I
counter
mean, Thursday,
suggestion?
I think it'll be on, and then we gotta go through our process, right? We gotta make sure the timers are going correctly, we have to go through our whole process, make sure the whole system works. And, you know, it takes, I have my programmer there for 7, 8 days. You know, he's been there 4 days already, and that didn't work, and I had to bring him back this week. So he'll be here for another probably 7, 8 days.
But you'll only have it on for those 3 days at night,
Well,
other than testing periods.
I have to put it on at night, so I can see if it's working, I have to aim.
Also,
it.
I'm asking you, what are you really asking for then? Like, if we're making a temporary exception to
I would
allow
like
us to
do
see it, what is it
whatever I
doing?
need to do right now with the testing and everything else, and, you know, have it on for the gala and table this to be back here again in 2 weeks.
Well, I think the concern is, you putting these lights on, and we don't want them on for days on end if they're going to be offensive. We don't know that yet. So, and you're testing it, what days are you testing, how long are you gonna be testing it for? Are you leaving it on, you know, for the regular standard period of time?
Yeah, it would stay on probably until my programmer leaves, which is usually about 11 o'clock at night, and then come back down.
So you're saying turn it on,
I only have 4 hours to test it, you know, between the time the programmer's there. It gets dark at 8 o'clock, so. we have
but
to
are you
position
saying you
it-
would test it every night from Thursday onward, or are you saying that would just be
Yeah, I have to
a couple of
position them.
nights?
I have to I don't know, because I have to position the lights, we have to make sure everything works, you know, we have to get the color right. Those lights change colors.
Right.
So we have to set it to change the colors. I mean, it's a process. It's not a light fixture that we connect and we put on and then just lights, you know, it's a little bit more complicated.
So basically, you need to position the lights so that you can test them, and then there'll be a period of time to test.
No, we can put the lights on and we can test them and we know if they work or they don't work. The positioning of the lights is to make sure that the lights are where they're supposed to be, that they're not giving any light pollution, that they're going only in our frame, you know, all of that, and that's an adjustment, and it's not just moving the light. The lights are physically installed into a system that we have to move and then put the system back together. So it's hours of work, and we only have the nighttime to really get the positioning.
No, but I understand, but in order for us to be able to, or anyone in the village to be able to evaluate the impact, you have to do your setup, which involves this testing and some preparation. So I'm not sure how we communicate that to the public so that people would know that this isn't, you know, this is set up to be able to test, you know, what these things look like.
But if we were able to, if it was working last night and we were able to see it, you wouldn't have done all that testing and setup.
Well, it was, so yesterday, just that one section that was up, I know we need to move it. It's not positioned right, you know, so the way it's set, it's only going on 2 of the panels and it's not going on the whole. So I already know we need to move that section of it. We haven't gotten the other part up.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, it sounds like, but I think one thing that's not clear from what you're saying is how many nights you think the testing will continue and for, you know, just so that we know when we can tell people to look at the final.
4 days of programming on the exterior, because the programming goes for the interior and the exterior. So I think we have at least 4 days of programming on the exterior.
Okay, so that would put us to, I guess, early,
Sunday or Monday,
yeah.
and then you're into your big week.
So when should we tell people the window of time would be that they could come and look at what it will look like? Are you still thinking May 3rd to the 5th, or is it May 2nd to the 5th? Or May 3rd to the 5th?
But we
But
also.
you could be penalizing yourself because you are gonna have other lights there.
Well, on
You
the
know,
3rd
it's
you
a red
are.
carpet and,
On the 3rd,
but
not
not
the
on the
4th or
other
5th.
nights, the other nights that won't be there?
No, that's just
Okay,
the one night.
so it's just that one
Yeah,
night,
only
okay.
for the one night, the gala night, and immediately it gets broken down and then that's it.
I would say that then, if people were going to evaluate what it looks like, it sounds to me like it would be the 4th and the 5th
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
the dates. Between now and then, there'll be setup and testing. The 3rd is going to be a special event with additional lighting, which is not going to be a continuing thing. And the 4th and the 5th would be 2 nights when the board or anyone who interested in the village could see what it looks like on an ongoing basis. Is that correct?
That is better myself. Exactly.
Now, a procedural issue, does that mean that on the 6th, those lights have to be turned off until we give approval for them?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, just to make it clear, if it isn't already clear to you, and, you know, somebody else could correct me up here, but we're not giving, you know, by allowing you to set up and test this system, we are by no means giving you any permission to continue to run it. And it may be that there are concerns that we have about the lights or the process to be able to find a way to waive this under the code, that you will not be allowed to use them in the future.
And you're coming up with you said you can have an expert give us more information on the lights?
Yeah,
Okay.
just to give you guys, you know,
Right.
more information, make it not so engineering, you know, all the verbiage we have is so, and knowing that the normal person doesn't understand what they're on, so. it's
Okay.
better literature.
Thank you.
Having gone down there last night, I now understand these graphs you gave us.
Really?
So they
I
make
still don't
sense.
understand them, so I.
Yeah, no,
It's
I-
better than me.
My brain.
No, that does make sense, I understand now what they're showing. Okay, so is everybody on the same page? We're understood, okay? All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, action item number 4 is to consider motion to authorize the village administrator to sign an agreement with Jazz Forum Arts to provide summer concerts for a cost not to exceed $10,000. Well, this is something we've been doing every year for many, many years. Mark Morganelli, of course, is, well, we lost him, he lives in Tarrytown now, but he used to be here in Dobbs Ferry, and a very, very famous jazz musician who has done a lot of work to support jazz in general and the Jazz Forum Arts. And this is basically the summer concert series that takes place in Dobbs Ferry every year. And the village has supported it, and I think we all probably want to continue to support it. So are there any issues here at all that anybody has with this? Or I know Mark usually comes here the night we have this, but we couldn't make it tonight, so.
When you ask, my experience, in the last 15 years that I've lived in the village, when you talk to people about what things that make Dobbs Ferry special, those summer concerts by the river come up time and time again as being a place where people from the village come together and really enjoy the village and each other and wonderful music. So I'm very much in favor of this.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that this contract includes insurance and vendors and rights and, yeah, it's good, very thorough, that we're protected.
Any other questions? Then I'll take a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign an agreement with Jazz Forum Arts to provide summer concerts for a cost to the village not to exceed $10,000. Is there a motion? Trustee Corrales, second trustee Sullivan, discussion, all in favor? And that passes with 6 ayes, 1 absent. Thank you. Action item number 6 is to consider a motion to authorize the village administrator to enter into an agreement with Lothrop Associates to perform a conditions assessment, cost estimation plan, and space planning recommendations.
We skipped number 5.
Oh, sorry, and Bart's been sitting back there all night. I'm sorry, Bart.
That was not purposeful.
No,
Not that we're trying to avoid
You
this.
know I would not do that. Consider a motion, okay, so here we are. We're going back to item number 5, which is I skipped over. Consider a motion to grant an easement for the applicant of 75 Main Street to add an ADA compliant ramp on the village sidewalk to front door and move the Chestnut Street driveway 9.5 feet to the east with no change to parking.
Now, is it 9.5, because there was a little discrepancy in some of the material? 9.5, okay.
9 feet 6 inches.
There was some 28 inches
There was a
someplace.
28-inch movement.
28 inches on the west side.
Ah,
28 inches on the west side.
so it's getting bigger?
There's the
No,
curb
just to make
cut.
it really simple, the west side of the door is moving 2'4", but the east side of the door is moving 9'5",
Ah.
because the door has gotten smaller.
Got it.
So the whole door is shifting over a little bit, but it doesn't change parking, and this is consistent with what the ARB,
Is it-
they finally worked.
So if I understand it, there was a double door, one of which was a non-moving panel in what you presented to the HRB?
Right, we presented the double door was, 16, 18 feet? And then the architect used the existing opening and kept the facade, and then put another door adjacent to that. And the reason for the moving is the architecture felt they wanted symmetry, they wanted the same
Right.
amount of brick on each side. So
Yeah.
that's what caused the change and movement to the west.
Yeah, and I also checked with the chief of police to make sure that doesn't affect Hudson Terrace at all, the moving of the driveway. And she said that it was fine.
Any other questions for Bart or concerns here at all?
I have
So
a
just to
question
be
on the
clear,
ADA ramp.
Okay, go ahead.
I hate, you're spending so much time and money rehabilitating that building. And we have to have it ADA compliant, obviously. Is there any way you could do something better than just that railing? I mean, is there something that can be used that makes it blend in a little more with the building?
What about
Maybe
like
not. I'm
glass
just
railing?
Throwing
or-
that out there, or brick or something.
I think we matched the railing to the railing above on the front of the building.
Pardon me?
We could revisit that railing. I mean, I think we have to go when the architecture review board, which we can discuss the railing.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because that's just so,
No problem.
you're spending, it's gonna be such a beautiful building and that's kinda not.
Is there,
But I don't wanna, raise your costs out of the realm too. Oh, there is, oh, okay.
But again, we'll, in front of the HRB, we'll address that.
Okay.
Maybe have a couple options on that.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're not granting a waiver or a variance, right? This is an easement,
I remember
right?
back there.
Brought back memories.
Yeah, no. So how are you doing with the AHRB? Where are you?
We're done.
Where is this project?
It's up there.
We're, I'm gonna start demo, and we're just finalizing the plans. Hopefully
Yeah.
next week we can finalize by this May.
So we'll start seeing some work being done there?
Seeing some work start.
It has?
Congratulations.
Awesome. Yeah?
No changes from the construction plans to the approved plans, right?
Just height.
Just height here in the ready?
Just height and mass.
Just a few inches.
Just a few feet.
Height, setbacks, you know.
Well, that's great news. We weren't sure kind of where you were. Well, that's really great news. Excellent, excellent. Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions, concerns? Let's see if we can get
I'm sorry,
get
Harley.
Bart back to the AHRB, which is
Sorry.
where he wants to be.
I'm sorry, I do have, how much of the sidewalk is this ramp going to take up? And that's, because if my memory serves, this is a fairly narrow piece of sidewalk, right?
Well, we propose a bulb out.
And there's a bus stop there.
We propose a bulb out, so the sidewalk goes into the, I don't know, it's on the plan.
Let me see,
What's part of the resolution?
Yeah, you've already approved the fact that the curb is gonna be moving out,
Okay.
and sidewalk is gonna get wider. And that was basically to accommodate the space needed for this ramp. We originally had the ramp, but then we didn't include it in what this board previously, so that's why it's coming back to you. But the whole idea of bringing the sidewalk out has several different positive things. First, it means there's no issue with loss of the width here, we got plenty of room. Second, it brings the curb out so that people waiting to cross are standing effectively in line with the other side of the cars, so cars can see them. What we would love is to see the other side of the street do the same. And then that would be one of the crosswalks done the way that people have been asking the crosswalks to be done in the downtown. So this is something that people have talked about wanting, so it's great that we're gonna see it happen.
Thank you.
Mayor, just one thing, all costs associated with the easement will be borne by the applicant. There's filing fees for the land records filing. They should provide me a draft of the proposal, and I'll finalize it if you approve it.
That's great. Okay, any other questions? All right, so I will consider and take a motion to grant an easement as requested with the application of 75 Main Street to add an ADA compliant ramp on the village sidewalk to the front door and to move the Chestnut Street driveway over 9.5 feet to the east with no change to the parking. Is there a motion? Trustee Rosillo, second. Trustee Corrales, discussion on the table? Pass with 6 votes. Thanks. Okay, now action item number 6 is to consider a motion to authorize the village administrator to enter into an agreement with Lothrop Associates to perform a conditions assessment, cost estimation plan, and space planning recommendations for the police station for the properties of the village fire department and administration structure at 112 Main Street and the firehouse at 203 Ashford Avenue, not to exceed $40,000. And I think I'll ask the village administrator maybe to give us a little background on this, just real quick, what we're considering.
This is part of the package for the new budget, actually. As you know, the floor of the firehouse needs to be shored up. We've done the plans for that. We're doing a cost estimate for that. But here we have to find out what the other things that we have, the electricity, the HVAC, and anything we do in the fire department will affect the police department, because when we put in the new floor, it's taking a portion of the property room and blah, blah, blah. So what we have to do is have an assessment of what's needed in order to accommodate both the police and fire department, and also find out what the upgrades that are needed in the building, and get a cost estimate. For the other building, it's the same thought process. Although it's $40,000, you're not just getting the assessment of the building that we had with when they did the park buildings. Here, we're getting the full-blown site, floor plans for the building, an assessment of the building and all the HVAC, electrical, etc. And we're getting the cost estimates on that, which will make it much easier when we go out to bid.
What was do you remember the price that we paid for them to do an assessment of the Gould Park buildings and the Embassy Center?
In the vicinity of 25,000.
So you're saying it's more because they're doing more than they did the last time?
Yes,
They're actually creating layouts for us?
They're creating layouts, and they're also giving us true cost estimates.
And the layouts will be used to work from to do any repairs that are, design any repair structures?
Because we're taking pieces away, because when we put the floor in, we're taking a piece of the property room, and we have to then rearrange everything and see whether it works for the police department and the fire department.
I guess, did they give you an understanding of why it's so much more for them to, I guess, just draw what's there?
It won't be just drawing what's there. It will
Okay.
be really determining and meeting with the police department, fire department, seeing what their needs are. It's a lot more intricate than that.
Okay, it's
And the
because
last time we
there's a
didn't
lot of meetings time involved
have- lot of
because
meeting
they're,
time, yeah.
okay, and they're
Yeah,
really
with
looking
all
at.
parties, because there's a lot of issues within this building and the way it's
Yeah.
configured. And it's even gonna be more when we put the new floor in.
Yeah.
Also, the cost estimates they really have to go out and find out how much these things cost. It really
It's
is
a
a lot of
unique
work.
project.
Yeah, it is a very unique project. Both of them are unique projects because they're police stations, fire, and not like park buildings are just park buildings.
Yeah, these actually have to accommodate thousands of pounds of weight.
Absolutely.
Okay. That
And this
helps.
was the only company that responded to the bid?
No, there was another company
Oh.
that responded bid, and
I thought you said Lothrop was the only bid received. We sent the RFP to Lothrop and DeSalvi, Lothrop was the only
yeah,
bid received?
and they're the only one who responded. We sent it out.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
yeah.
So, and how are we gonna pay for this?
Jack?
No, I'm just saying, we're.
Do you have your checkbook?
We have the money in the budget.
This has been factored into the budget, huh?
Yes.
Just asking.
No doubt,
the
and
question
actually it's
someone's gonna
factored
ask
into
us.
this year's budget, not next year's budget.
Is it safe
it's
to,
this fiscal year.
can we also say that, this work, if we do this, and I agree, this does look really pretty expensive, but you're explaining that there's really a lot more involved than what we did the last time around, right?
Yes, much.
But it seems like a lot of money, but there's a lot going on in all these buildings, and there's a lot that needs to be addressed with these buildings, and particularly things that maybe are gonna require some significant engineering work. But is it safe to say, we can say that this is something that we are gonna be addressing in the capital reserve fund? These, getting this work done will allow us to,
Get the
we
RFP.
need to get this work done
We'll get-
first.
yeah, we'll get the
To
plan, yeah.
consider any of the work that we need to consider on these buildings, so it's a necessary expenditure, really.
It's absolutely necessary, because otherwise we'll be doing it piecemeal and only get portions of it done. The bid for the assessment was $29,000 some odd dollars, and then for the additional work, it's up to $40,000. We will try to keep them as,
Yeah.
below that as much as possible.
Yeah, when you add those numbers up, it comes to about 30, so you got a little bit of,
Yeah,
you're putting a little bit of pad in it.
I see, yeah, that's good. We have
But you'll keep it as
cushion.
low as you can.
as low as we can.
Okay. Any other questions at all?
I guess I would say it'd be interesting to see a breakdown of hours and as they're doing this, just for our education going forward, to get a sense, because it's obviously an enormous amount of time that must be being spent to have it be this expensive.
all their invoices will have the number of hours, et cetera. So we will.
You'll get itemized
Yeah,
invoices.
all the invoices.
It'd be interesting for us to see a summary of that if we could.
Sure, I mean, that's no problem at all.
Thank you.
You know, this is really a necessary evil at this point. We must do it.
Yeah, I mean, because of the engineering aspects of it as
In
well.
totality, actually, what's
And
gonna
the
come before
mechanical,
the board is
structural.
going to be, an issue for the floor, which is totally different. You know, that, we're going to bid out the floor, concrete work.
Yeah.
Because we have the plan already, and we just have to get that all settled and get the specs out. So you're going to see a lot of money being spent. Some of the money, obviously, in fact, most of it, I think we can accommodate in this budget for all the specs, doing the specs and all the engineering work. And then for, of course, the concrete, then we have to deal with that when we have to do it.
That's great. Thank you for answering that.
Okay, thanks, Arlene. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then let's see if we push this forward. Consider a motion to authorize the village administrator to enter into an agreement with Lothrop Associates to perform the conditions assessment, cost estimation plan, and space plan recommendations for the police station and the other properties mentioned as recommended by the village administrator, and this is not to exceed a cost of $40,000. Is there a motion? Trustee Corrales, second trustee Cassell, discussion, all in favor? That passes with 6 ayes. Thanks, Charlene. Action item number 7 is to consider a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign an agreement with Westchester Greenhouses to manage the 2017 Farmers Market. That seems pretty straightforward.
Yes, it's the same amount as last year. I think we did a nice job, and I think everybody was happy with it. So,
No change in location?
no change in location.
And it says here they won't start till mid-June, is that right? Or can they
That's
start
what they-
earlier? Or?
We would love them to start earlier, and we've
Is that a
asked them,
possibility, or?
hopefully, have you spoken to them? I'll ask them to start early. That's what they said that they can
I
do.
mean, people, I think, really like that market.
I think they do.
Right?
Yeah,
The later the better.
No, I
all the
do.
time.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. If you can do that, excellent. Thanks. Okay, if there's no further questions, ask for a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign an agreement with Westchester Greenhouses. This will be to manage the 2017 Dobbs Ferry Farmers Market. Is there a motion? Trustee Rosillo, second trustee Corrales, discussion, all in favor? That passes with 6 ayes. Action item number 8, consider a motion to close Village Hall offices on May 2nd, 2017 for a records management and safety training day. We do this each year.
Yes, and everybody's here. It's just that we have to, all our systems are down when we have the records management, and it's a good time to do the training at the same time. So it's hard coordinating the day, but we finally did it.
You can get all that done in one day, too?
Hopefully.
Pretty good. That's a lot to get done.
Great. Thanks, Charlene. I'll take a motion to authorize the village administrator, take a motion to close Village Hall offices on May 2nd, 2017, and this is for Records Management and Safety Training Day. Is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? Passes with 6 ayes, sorry. 1 absent. And action item number 9 is to consider motion to approve a request from the Ardsley School District to place signs for the Ardsley School budget vote at various locations in the village. We do this as a courtesy for the school district in Ardsley each year because kids that live in Dobbs Ferry actually go to the Ardsley School District, some of them. So we do this every year. So I'll take a motion to approve the request from the Ardsley School District. Is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Corrales, discussion, all in favor? Passes with 6 ayes as well. And final item is the library board that we added at the very beginning, which is to schedule a public hearing for May 9th at 7:30 p.m. here at Village Hall for a public hearing to discuss and to consider increasing the library board membership from 7 to 9 members. Is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, yes. Second trustee Sullivan, discussion, all in favor? Okay, that passes with 6 ayes, and that will be properly posted. And that brings us to the end. Any comments on the minutes for the regular meeting of April 18, 2017? If not, then I'll take a motion to adopt the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for April 18, 2017 as presented. Is there a motion? Trustee Corrales, second. Trustee Taylor, discussion, all in favor? That passes with 6 ayes. Okay, a couple of things here, just sort of some notices, I think, to make, and I'll ask the trustees if there's any announcements or anything else going on, but we do want to notice that we've had actually a series of really nice meetings between or with the Board of Trustees, as well as the ad hoc citizens committee that was formed to review the changes to the village zoning code, which had been recommended by the initial ad hoc review committee some 2 years ago, as well as the planning board. And we've been going through that process. We had a really good meeting last night and made a lot more progress, and the thought was that we want to conduct one more meeting, which we will notice for May 10th at 6:30 p.m. here at Village Hall. And that, we think, will be sort of the meeting that will sort of tie everything up, wrap everything up for the board to then review for a little bit longer and consider taking action, possibly in, we think, June, sometime in June, because we have a lot of things going on, and we want to give this some time. So we did want to notice that, and we'll have that properly noticed, and I think I've done that properly. Don't need to take a vote on that. So we just wanted to put that out there. Okay. Annalise, anything on your end at all?
Yeah, from the the Recreation Department, I wanted to make sure everyone's aware that this coming Sunday, April 30th, is Community Cleanup Day, and we do this every year. It's going to be from 12 noon to 1 p.m., and there's 4 different locations, and it's grouped by age group. So K through 2 kids can go to Memorial Park. Grades 3 to 5 will go to Gould Park. Grades 6 to 8, Waterfront Park. And grades 9 through 12 at the middle school, high school campus. Kids under the age of 14 must have an adult present. The Recreation Department will have staff members at each of the 4 sites. All participants are required to bring work gloves and a garbage bag. That's it. You can also collect donations. You can get friends and family to sponsor you, and donations will go towards purchasing additional recycle cans and waste baskets for our community. And it doesn't compete with your Riverkeeper cleanup the following week, so we'll be very clean, and there will be pizza and water for all participants at the Memorial Park office following the cleanup. That'll be at 1:15 p.m. If anyone wants to donate for this cause, you can make donation checks out to the Village of Dobbs Ferry and give it to the Recreation Department office at Memorial Park. It's a mouthful, but there's also information that's, if you signed up, as I always ask people every meeting, to sign up for the Recreation newsletter and news on email on dobbsferry.com. If you were signed up, you would have gotten this notice in your email inbox. And also, don't forget to sign up for summer camp, Summer Magic Camp. It's 6 weeks in the summer. From the first day of camp is July 5th, and it goes through the 11th, I believe, of August. And there are a lot of different activities. And unlike last year and maybe some previous years, you can sign up for different weeks. You don't have to do the full 6 weeks. So if you just want to do weeks 1 and 6, you can do that. So I just want to make sure members of the public know that, because people have been asking me about that. And I think you were probably going to say something about Senior Week as well, or do you want me to say anything?
Yeah, go ahead. I have it here, but you can cover that too.
I didn't have any details except that it's May 8th to the 12th.
May 8th through the 12th, that's all I got too.
Okay.
So we'll fill in along the way, right?
I'll fill it in.
That's
Annalisa,
it.
thank you very much for that. Vinnie, anything? Nicole?
Yeah, I went to the spring, I don't know if it's the annual spring luncheon for the seniors today, and it was actually really nice. They had a good turnout. They're still missing the Embassy Center though, because there's still not enough room for everybody, and there wasn't really a lot of room for them to dance to the DJ, although a few people did cut the rug. They do have a way. They found a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So the Senior Week, as the mayor said, is May 8th to 12th, and I think that they really want to give a special shout out to Father Tim for offering Pompeii Church for the first 2 days, because that does give them a much bigger space, and so they'll be able to do really cool activities there. They're gonna have chair yoga and some line dancing and some seminars on safety and health with different people. And Cedar Street Grill is providing bagels and coffee when they're at Pompeii. And then on Wednesday, Half Moon generously is providing lunch to everybody at the waterfront. They just asked for a $5, it's a $5 per person fee really, which is just for the tips that they're for their staff. So that's gonna be really nice on Wednesday. Hopefully the weather will hold out. And then they'll be back at the firehouse on Thursday and Friday with some more events. And they have free parking on Palisade Street during senior week. And if anybody needs the senior bus, you can call 693-7792 for that. And then they also have their travel club has a couple of events coming up on May 23rd to 24th. They're going to Lancaster, and on June 29th they're going to see Annie at the Broadway Theater. So you can call Tony for reservations for that at 674-2952. So they're going to be pretty active in May.
Oh, yeah.
That's great, Nicole. Thanks so much for that. Larry?
The only thing I'd mention, so that remind people to be aware of, a Chamber of Commerce meeting is tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Doubledays.
The CAB already gave their report, as did the New York State Thruway, so, bridge, so.
Okay.
That's it.
Great stuff, guys. Okay, just a few final things here. We wanted to recognize, a couple of weeks ago, we recognized two of our really great, fine young police officers, Officer Stephen Betts and Officer Adam Medlowski, who performed some incredible duties some weeks ago and faced with a really difficult situation here in town. And they were recognized by the Journal News, which gave each of them their first place awards in Category 1 in the Journal News Police Honor Awards, which they do regularly, but to get a Category 1 award and to be recognized means that you've done something really courageous and really heroic. And again, you know, we're so proud of our police department, and they keep us safe all the time. And to Officer Stephen Betts and Adam Mitkowski, congratulations, but we really want to congratulate all of our police officers and our chief for the work that they do each and every day. We really value them, and we really appreciate them. Let's see. Well, speaking of the theater, there is if you didn't see it, there's a pretty cool article in the Journal News on the iBig Theater. There's a lot of Dobbs Ferry is getting a lot of press on this, and notwithstanding the light issue that we're definitely going to look very, very closely at. We obviously are going to handle that very, very carefully. It's quite a place, and looking forward to seeing what that looks like once it gets open. But it's very luxurious, and it's a really, really special place. And I think it'll be interesting how everybody sort of reacts to that. But just some news for entrance on Dobbs Ferry. I want to thank the Fire Department Chief Chris DeNike. As Trustee Russillo mentioned in his opening prayer tonight, some of the trustees and myself were at the fire dinner this past weekend, which was not the inspection dinner, actually. It was a dinner that they had decided they wanted to do. Each year they elect a new chief, assistant chiefs, captains, and some new members. And the tradition with some other departments is that you swear them in each year that you do that, and you have sort of a dinner around that, and that's really what that dinner was. But it was great. It was a really fun time. They did a great job, and really, really felt welcome, and it was really nice to be there with them. And we just, again, want to thank them for their service, all the fire members and what they do. It really is great group of people. Want to thank the Dobbs Ferry Youth Little League. Some of us marched in the Youth Little League parade this past weekend as well. President Al Greco, Jeff Young, and all the directors and board members. We had a band this year, which was excellent. The Marching Cobras from St. Christopher's were there, and they're just an extraordinary group. And they're going to come back and march for the Memorial Day parade as well. And
that was really fun.
Yeah, it really made a big difference. And I got to say, I've been doing that parade for a long time, not just marching in it, but as a coach and being around it. And I know as a lot of other parents here have, and that's as many kids and parents as I've ever seen. Man, it was great. So it's good to see a lot.
There's a lot of community feedback about how wonderful it was to have the band and what a different energy there was in the parade. So that was a very good addition that, you know, you guys all worked hard for. So the community definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, great. That's really good to hear. So anyway, thanks to everybody who was involved with that. We want to thank the River Arts folks for the River Arts Studio Walk this weekend. It was a very active weekend in Dobbs Ferry, and Doug Cole, Executive Director, and all the board members and contributors and sponsors. Dobbs Ferry has been a patron of the River Arts for many, many years, and it was just a great showcase of all the talent here in Dobbs Ferry, the cultural town and the artists, and a pretty decent weekend. Weather-wise, it wasn't great, but it didn't keep anybody away. So thanks for everybody who came out for that, and thanks to River Arts for supporting that and supporting the arts in our community. Few last things here. Just want to, the Historical Society has been putting out, if you're on their email list, but the annual return of the Lenape, descendants of the Lenape who lived on the shores of the Hudson's River in the 16 and 1700s will be visiting Dobbs Ferry on May 5th. So the Dobbs Ferry Historical Society and the Friends of Wickers Creek will be joining them. I met some of these guys last year. They're really interesting guys, and they are really still it's a great cultural event. So this will be Friday, May 3rd. They have a drum circle which starts at 5:30 p.m. Potluck dinner at 6:30 p.m. This will be at the Dobbs Ferry May 5th. At the Dobbs Ferry Historical Society on Elm Street. They do ask that if you want to go, bring a dish, and you can share that, or a beverage. And if you have any other questions or you want to get more information, contact Peggy Blizzard at peggy.blizzard@verizon.net or 693-5871 for information on the event, the return of the Lenape on May 5th here in Dobbs Ferry. And finally, we really do have a great beautification committee in Dobbs Ferry. They do a lot of work, and the Garden Club is very much involved in that. They really beautify our village in so many different ways, and pockets of color and flowers, and they're just great. The Federated Garden Clubs of the State of New York awarded Dobbs Ferry, the Garden Club of Dobbs Ferry, for the Blue Star Memorial, which was put in place about a year and a half ago down at Memorial Park. If you haven't seen it, it's great. They awarded them first place for District 9, and so this is a really big deal. So congratulations to the Garden Club of Dobbs Ferry and Merle Hubner and all the people who are involved in that organization. Congratulations, that's really a big deal. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end. There being no other business, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.